The crimson velvet curtain, heavy with the weight of untold stories, hung in the hushed theater of memory. A single shaft of ethereal light, perhaps from a stage door left ajar, or a star glimpsed through a crack in the ceiling, pierced the gloom, illuminating a lone microphone stand. It stood sentinel, a silent monument to a voice that once soared, a presence that once commanded, a spirit that once ignited. For a fleeting, almost imperceptible moment, a faint, almost ghostly echo seemed to ripple through the empty seats, a wailing guitar, a soaring falsetto, a thunderous beat. It was the whisper of Prince Rogers Nelson, a name that, even in its quiet utterance, conjured a kaleidoscope of images, a dazzling enigma, a transcendent talent, a rebel draped in lace and audacity. His public perception was a carefully curated mosaic of paradoxes. He was the flamboyant showman, a spectacle of sequins and ruffles, strutting across stages like a deity descending from the heavens. Yet he was also the reclusive genius, shrouded in an almost impenetrable veil of privacy, his every move a subject of fervent speculation. He built an empire on raw, unbridled sexuality, yet maintained a deeply spiritual, almost monastic existence. He was a pop icon, a rock god, an R&B innovator, a funk architect, a one-man musical revolution who defied categorization, blurring lines of genre, gender, and expectation. The world saw the dazzling performances, the chart-topping hits, the unparalleled showmanship. They saw the dazzling smile, the mischievous glint in his eyes, the audacious costumes. But behind the shimmering facade, beneath the layers of mystique, lay a labyrinth of complexities, a heart yearning for connection, a soul wrestling with its own profound contradictions. His eventual, sudden departure from the earthly stage only amplified the enigma, leaving behind a legacy as brilliant and perplexing as the man himself. This was not merely the story of a musician, it was the saga of a supernova, a dazzling light that burned with an intensity rarely seen, leaving behind both a blinding trail of creative brilliance and the long, lingering shadows of untold sorrows. We embark now on a journey into that luminous, yet often shadowed, existence, seeking to understand the man behind the purple rain, the quiet revolutionary who dared to be utterly, magnificently himself. It is a story of extraordinary talent, fierce independence, profound vulnerability, and ultimately, a tragic silence that reverberated across the globe. On a warm summer day, June 7, 1958, in the bustling yet often racially fraught city of Minneapolis, Minnesota, a singular star was born, Prince Rogers Nelson. His arrival into the world was perhaps an ordinary event for many, but for his parents, John L. Sideslow Nelson and Mattie Della Shaw, it marked the beginning of an extraordinary, if at times tumultuous, family saga. John, a talented jazz pianist and songwriter who went by the stage name Prince Rogers, was the intellectual and artistic anchor of the family, his passion for music a burning ember he sought to pass on. Mattie, a vocalist with a captivating stage presence, brought a fiery energy and an undeniable flair for performance. Both were deeply immersed in the vibrant, though often challenging, world of local music, performing in small clubs and barely scraping by. Their artistic inclinations were a blessing and a curse. While they instilled in young Prince a profound appreciation for melody and rhythm, their bohemian lifestyle often led to financial instability and a pervasive sense of transience. The family's roots stretched back through generations of African Americans in the South, eventually migrating north in search of better opportunities, carrying with them the echoes of gospel, blues, and the deep, resonant spirituality of their heritage. Prince was the second child, following his older sister, Tyka Nelson, who possessed a raw, almost untamed musical talent of her own. The household was a constant symphony of sounds, John's intricate piano riffs, Mattie's soaring vocals, the casual hum of a jazz standard on the radio. It was a fertile ground for a nascent genius, but also a battleground. John and Mattie's relationship was volatile, marked by intense passion that often flared into equally intense arguments. These domestic upheavals, witnessed from a tender age, left an indelible mark on Prince, fostering a deep-seated desire for control and a profound, almost pathological need for harmony, even if it meant creating his own world of sound to escape the cacophony of reality. He was a quiet, observant child, often retreating into himself, a trait that would persist throughout his life. His early nickname, Skipper, given to him by his family, hinted at a playful, perhaps even mischievous spirit that belied his introspective nature. The socio-economic environment of North Minneapolis in the late 1950s and 60s was a complex tapestry of working-class struggles, racial tensions, and a burgeoning music scene that offered both escape and opportunity. The Nelsons, though never truly destitute, knew the gnawing anxiety of lean times. Prince attended Lincoln Junior High and Central High School, where his innate musicality began to manifest in earnest. He was drawn to instruments like a moth to a flame, first the piano, then drums, and eventually, with an almost supernatural ease, the guitar. The saxophone, a staple of his father's jazz repertoire, also captivated him, adding another layer to his burgeoning sonic palette. His parents, recognizing his prodigious talent, encouraged his musical pursuits, providing him with instruments and the freedom to explore. He soaked up every sound, every genre, the raw energy of James Brown, the intricate harmonies of Joni Mitchell, the psychedelic freedom of Jimi Hendrix, the smooth soul of Sly and the Family Stone. He was a sponge, absorbing, dissecting, and ultimately transforming. There were no ambiguities about his age or identity. He was simply Prince, a name bestowed upon him by his father, a regal appellation that, in retrospect, seemed almost prophetic. Yet, his identity as an artist, as a unique voice, was a constant evolution. His initial exposure to the music industry came through his father's connections, playing in various local bands, often alongside his cousin, Charles Smith, and later, André Simone, who would become a lifelong friend and early collaborator. The music industry of the early 1970s was a landscape ripe for disruption, dominated by corporate rock and emerging disco, but still clinging to traditional structures. Prince, even as a teenager, sensed the limitations the boxes artists were forced into. His early motivations were not simply fame or fortune, but a relentless, almost spiritual drive to create, to express, to break free from the constraints of expectation. He knew, with an almost terrifying certainty, that he was different, that his music was different, and that he was destined for something more than the local club scene. The initial hurdles were formidable, finding a sympathetic ear in a conservative industry, navigating the cutthroat world of demo tapes and record labels, and simply being heard above the din. But Prince, even then, possessed an unshakable belief in his own vision, a quiet fire that burned with an incandescent intensity, ready to consume the world. The path to recognition for Prince Rogers Nelson was less a gentle ascent and more a volcanic eruption, a relentless, often agonizing climb through the rigid structures of the music industry. He faced not only the systemic challenges of a burgeoning artist, but also the unique hurdles of a Black musician defying easy categorization in a landscape still grappling with racial stereotypes. Poverty was a constant companion in his early years. Even after his parents' tumultuous separation, he often found himself bouncing between relatives' homes, sometimes even sleeping on friends' couches, his guitar his only true confidant. The industry gatekeepers, accustomed to neatly packaging artists into predefined genres, struggled to comprehend the kaleidoscope of sound that poured from him. Was he R&B, funk, rock, pop? He was all of them, and none of them, a chameleon of melody. And this refusal to conform often led to dismissals, doors slammed in his face, and countless rejections. His relentless efforts were legendary, bordering on obsessive. He would spend countless hours in the studio, a solitary figure consumed by sound, meticulously layering instruments, experimenting with drum machines, crafting intricate vocal harmonies, often playing every instrument himself. André Simone, his childhood friend and bandmate, often recounted tales of Prince's insatiable work ethic, his unwavering focus, and his almost superhuman ability to translate the cacophony in his mind into perfectly orchestrated compositions. There was a raw, primal urgency to his creativity, as if the music was a life force, demanding to be birthed. He honed his stage presence in small, smoky clubs in Minneapolis, captivating audiences with a magnetic energy that transcended the limited confines of the venue. He was a mesmerizing performer even then, a blur of motion, a flash of provocative brilliance, pushing boundaries long before the world was ready. His breakthrough moment arrived not with a bang, but with a series of quiet, persistent knocks. Warner Brothers, Records, recognizing a raw, undeniable talent, finally offered him a contract, but under conditions that initially chafed against his fiercely independent spirit. They wanted him to relinquish creative control, to be molded into a marketable product. But Prince, even at 19, was an unyielding force. He famously insisted on producing his own albums, a virtually unprecedented demand for a debut artist. This early defiance set the tone for a career defined by an unwavering commitment to his artistic vision, a refusal to compromise, even in the face of immense pressure. His debut album, For You, released in 1978, showcased his multi-instrumental prowess and nascent songwriting talent, hinting at the genius to come. It was followed quickly by Prince in 1979, which yielded his first major hit, I Wanna Be Your Lover, a seductive, funk-infused track that captivated audiences with its undeniable groove and Prince's distinctive falsetto. The public and critical reception to his early work was a mix of fascination and confusion. Critics lauded his musical dexterity and innovative sound, yet many struggled to place him, to label him. Was he the next Stevie Wonder? The next Marvin Gaye? Prince was unequivocally Prince. He was a man in makeup, sometimes heels, blurring the lines of gender expression in a way that was both captivating and challenging for mainstream audiences. He was a Black artist who refused to be confined to Black radio, demanding airplay on rock stations, alienating some traditionalists while simultaneously forging a new path. His rising fame, while bringing financial relief and a newfound sense of artistic validation, also began to exert its insidious pressure on his personal life. The quiet, introspective boy from Minneapolis was now a public figure, every move scrutinized, every relationship sensationalized. The modest home he had known was replaced by burgeoning success, but the solitude he cherished often became a lonely consequence of his burgeoning stardom. The freedom of artistic expression often came at the cost of personal freedom, a trade-off he would grapple with for the rest of his life, a silent battle waged behind the dazzling curtain of his public persona. Prince Rogers Nelson's life was a tapestry woven with threads of extraordinary musical innovation, fierce independence, and a series of passionate, often tumultuous, romantic entanglements that mirrored the dramatic arc of his artistic expression. His relationships were rarely simple, often characterized by intense intimacy and public scrutiny, and they profoundly shaped the man and the artist. One of his earliest significant connections was with Vanity, born Denise Matthews, a striking and enigmatic singer he discovered and molded, rebranding her as the provocative frontwoman of his protégé group Vanity 6. Their relationship, both creative and romantic, was electric, fueled by a shared sense of rebellion and a desire to push boundaries. Their stage presence together was a raw, undeniable force, a sensual tango that both titillated and challenged the conservative sensibilities of the early 1980s. However, the intensity that fueled their connection also proved to be its undoing. The volatile dynamic, compounded by Prince's controlling artistic nature, ultimately led to their painful separation. Vanity later remarked, "He was my everything, but he wanted to own me." Their story was a vivid illustration of the blurring lines between muse, lover, and protégé in Prince's intensely personal and often hierarchical world. His relationship with Apollonia Cotero followed a similar trajectory, though perhaps with a softer edge. After Vanity's departure, Apollonia stepped into the role of his leading lady for the iconic film Purple Rain, becoming the new face of Apollonia 6. Their on-screen chemistry was palpable, translating into a deeply romantic, albeit brief, off-screen liaison. These relationships, played out against the backdrop of his burgeoning fame, were fodder for the burgeoning tabloid industry. The press reveled in the sensationalism, portraying Prince as a charismatic, almost vampiric seducer, luring beautiful women into his enigmatic world. Yet, for Prince, these connections were often deeply personal, rooted in a search for true partnership and artistic collaboration. He craved understanding, a kindred spirit who could navigate the unique pressures of his life. The late 1980s and early 1990s saw Prince engage in relationships with a string of talented and beautiful women, including Susanna Melvoin, sister of his bandmate Wendy Melvoin, and the stunning dancer Anna Fantastic. These liaisons, while perhaps less public, were no less intense. He often integrated his romantic partners into his artistic endeavors, blurring the lines between personal and professional, creating an almost insular world where his music and his relationships were inextricably linked. This created a profound sense of intimacy within his inner circle, but also immense pressure on those involved. His most significant and public romantic commitment came with Maite Garcia, a beautiful dancer and singer who would become his first wife. Their connection was profound, marked by a deep spiritual bond and a shared desire for a family. They married on Valentine's Day in 1996, a union that seemed to promise stability and domestic bliss for the famously elusive artist. Maite became his muse, his partner, and for a time, the center of his universe. Their joy was tragically short-lived, however, when their son, Amir Gregory Nelson, born with Pfeiffer syndrome, died a week after his birth. This devastating loss cast a long, dark shadow over their marriage, a grief so profound it ultimately proved too much for their union to bear. Maite later spoke with heartbreaking honesty about the sorrow, saying, "He was a very private person, and he dealt with his grief very privately, and that was hard for me." Their divorce in 2000 marked a turning point, signaling a retreat further into his private world. Following his divorce from Maite, Prince found solace and companionship with Manuela Testolini, a Canadian businesswoman he married in 2001. Their relationship, while less public than his previous ones, was characterized by a quiet stability. Manuela provided a different kind of support, offering a grounding presence amidst the chaos of his career. However, even this union, seemingly built on a foundation of mutual respect and shared interests, eventually succumbed to the pressures of Prince's unique lifestyle and his unwavering commitment to his music. They divorced in 2006. These romantic entanglements were not mere dalliances. They were integral to Prince's creative process and his personal evolution. They fueled his lyrics, inspired his melodies, and often provided the emotional landscape for his most iconic work. He explored themes of love, lust, heartbreak, and spiritual yearning with an unparalleled honesty, often drawing directly from his own experiences. His relationships, both the triumphs and the tragedies, were a testament to his passionate nature, his relentless pursuit of connection, and the profound, often challenging journey of a man who loved as fiercely as he created. The zenith of Prince Rogers Nelson's career was not a singular peak, but a majestic, sprawling mountain range, each summit a testament to his boundless creativity and unyielding artistic vision. The 1980s witnessed his ascent from a prodigious talent to a global phenomenon, a transformative period where he not only redefined popular music, but shattered societal norms with audacious grace. His most iconic achievement, arguably, was the 1984 release of the album and film Purple Rain. This project was a supernova, an explosion of artistic genius that catapulted him into the stratosphere of superstardom. The album itself, a flawless fusion of rock, R&B, pop, and gospel, became a cultural touchstone, spawning hits like When Doves Cry, Let's Go Crazy, and the elegiac title track. The film, a semi-autobiographical musical drama, showcased his compelling screen presence, his raw vulnerability, and his electrifying performance capabilities. Scenes of him on stage at First Avenue, bathed in purple light, guitar screaming with an almost human intensity, are etched into the collective memory, forever synonymous with his legend. His public persona during this period was nothing short of mesmerizing. He was the enigmatic trickster, cloaked in layers of mystique, his every appearance a calculated provocation. He wore high heels, ruffled shirts, and makeup, challenging traditional notions of masculinity and sexuality long before it became mainstream. He spoke in riddles, often through metaphors, and maintained an aura of otherworldly detachment. This carefully constructed persona was both a shield and a megaphone, allowing him to communicate profound ideas while maintaining a fiercely guarded privacy. Yet, beneath the dazzling spectacle, glimpses of his true self occasionally shone through. A shy smile, a fleeting moment of vulnerability on stage, a quiet kindness reported by those in his inner circle. He was, at heart, a musical savant, his mind constantly churning with melodies and lyrics, his hands always seeking a piano or a guitar. During his peak, the anecdotes of him at work are legendary. He was a force of nature in the studio, a tireless perfectionist who could spend days, even weeks, meticulously crafting a single track. He famously produced, arranged, composed, and often played nearly every instrument on his albums, earning him the moniker one-man band. Tales abound of him waking up in the middle of the night with a musical idea, immediately heading to the studio to lay it down, driven by an almost manic creative energy. On stage, he was a revelation. His concerts were not just performances. They were spiritual experiences, communal celebrations of sound and liberation. He would command the stage with an unparalleled blend of showmanship and raw musical talent, moving from blistering guitar solos to intricate dance routines with seamless fluidity. His interactions with fans were often brief, almost regal, but always imbued with a profound sense of connection, as if he recognized the silent communion they shared through his music. He would often throw pics or give a knowing wink, acknowledging the adoration with an almost shy gratitude. The cultural impact of Prince during his peak was seismic. He wasn't just a musician, he was a cultural revolutionary. He transcended racial barriers, proving that a black artist could dominate both R&B and rock charts. He challenged gender norms, inspiring countless individuals to embrace their true selves, regardless of societal expectations. His fashion choices, his provocative lyrics, and his unapologetic embrace of sexuality influenced generations of artists and fans. He symbolized a defiant individualism, a fearless commitment to artistic integrity in an industry often driven by commercial compromise. He represented the audacious spirit of the 1980s, a decade of bold experimentation and unapologetic self-expression. His influence echoed through the music of Michael Jackson, Madonna, and countless others. Yet he remained an inimitable original. He didn't just create trends, he was the trend. His music became the soundtrack to a generation's awakening, a vibrant, sensual, and undeniably powerful force that reshaped the cultural landscape, leaving an indelible mark that continues to resonate today. He was, in every sense of the word, a legend in his own time, a dazzling comet streaking across the firmament, leaving a trail of purple stardust in his wake. Beyond the dazzling stage lights and the meticulously crafted public persona, Prince Rogers Nelson's private world was a complex tapestry of profound solitude, relentless spiritual searching, and a deeply ingrained vulnerability that he rarely, if ever, exposed to the outside world. He was a man of intense contradictions, a public exhibitionist who was, in his heart, a profound introvert. The pressures of global fame, the incessant demands on his time and creative energy, often led him to retreat into the quiet sanctity of Paisley Park, his sprawling home and studio complex in Chanhassen, Minnesota. This was his sanctuary, his creative womb, a place where he could shed the layers of the superstar and simply be Prince, the artist, the man wrestling with his own inner demons. His inner conflicts were manifold, often rooted in the unresolved traumas of his childhood. The volatile relationship between his parents, their eventual separation, and the financial struggles he witnessed left him with a deep-seated need for control, a desire to create a perfect, harmonious world that he could command. This manifested not only in his meticulous approach to music, where every note and every nuance was precisely placed, but also in his personal relationships, where he often struggled to relinquish control or truly open himself up to others. He wrestled with loneliness, a pervasive sense of isolation that often accompanies extraordinary talent. Despite being surrounded by legions of fans and a dedicated entourage, he often felt profoundly alone, adrift in a sea of adoration that rarely touched the true depths of his soul. His relentless pursuit of musical perfection was, in many ways, a coping mechanism, a way to channel his anxieties and insecurities into something tangible, something beautiful. He battled an ongoing identity crisis, a constant tension between the flamboyant, sexually charged performer and the devout, spiritual seeker. In the mid-1990s, his conversion to the Jehovah's Witness faith marked a significant turning point, a profound search for meaning and stability amidst the chaos of his fame. This spiritual awakening led to a dramatic shift in his lyrical content, his public image, and even his personal conduct. He toned down the overt sexuality of his earlier work, focusing more on themes of spirituality, love, and redemption. This shift, while deeply personal and authentic, often clashed with the expectations of his longtime fans and the demands of the commercial music industry, creating a new layer of internal conflict. He wanted to be true to his faith, but also true to his artistic calling, often finding himself caught between two worlds. His closest, most private relationships offered rare glimpses into his inner sanctum. His sister, Tyka Nelson, remained a constant, if sometimes complicated, presence, a link to his humble beginnings. His half-sister, Sharon Nelson, also played a significant role, though often from a distance. The musicians he collaborated with, particularly members of his various bands like The Revolution and the New Power Generation, often became surrogate family, sharing in his intense creative process and witnessing his vulnerability firsthand. Wendy Melvoin and Lisa Coleman, the guitar and keyboard duo from The Revolution, shared a unique creative bond with him, often serving as sounding boards and trusted confidants. These relationships, though often strained by his demanding nature and the hierarchical structure he imposed, offered him a rare sense of camaraderie and understanding. He also formed deep, often paternal bonds with many of the female artists he mentored, seeing in them echoes of his own artistic spirit. The pressures of fame contributed immensely to these internal battles. The constant scrutiny, the relentless demands for new music, the burden of maintaining his iconic status, all weighed heavily on him. He found solace in his music, in the act of creation itself, using the studio as a confessional, a place where he could pour out his deepest fears and desires. But even that solace was often fleeting. He yearned for a normal life, a sense of belonging, a quiet peace that seemed perpetually out of reach. He once famously said, "The most important thing is to be true to yourself, but I sometimes wonder who that is." This profound statement revealed the ongoing struggle within him, the eternal quest to reconcile the dazzling superstar with the vulnerable man who simply wanted to be understood, loved, and free. The glittering facade of superstardom, so meticulously crafted by Prince Rogers Nelson, began to show hairline fractures in the years leading up to his tragic decline. It wasn't a sudden collapse, but a gradual, almost imperceptible erosion, exacerbated by a relentless touring schedule, a deteriorating physical condition, and the cumulative weight of years spent living under an intense spotlight. For a man who was the epitome of boundless energy and athletic grace on stage, the onset of persistent pain was a cruel irony. Years of performing in high heels, leaping from stages, and executing acrobatic dance moves had taken a severe toll on his body, particularly his hips. The pain grew increasingly debilitating, leading him to rely on prescription painkillers to manage his discomfort, a dependency that would ultimately prove fatal. His health, always a fiercely guarded secret, began to subtly betray him. There were whispers of hip problems, of shows being canceled or postponed due to illness. He underwent hip replacement surgery in 2010, but the relief was temporary, and the pain soon returned with a vengeance. Despite the physical toll, he remained committed to his art, touring extensively and continuing to record new music at a prodigious rate. But the strain was evident. His normally vibrant stage presence, while still electrifying, sometimes lacked the effortless fluidity of his earlier years. He often performed sitting down or leaning on mic stands, a stark contrast to the dynamic performer who once owned every inch of the stage. The final year of his life was marked by a series of concerning events that, in hindsight, painted a grim picture. In April 2016, his private jet made an emergency landing in Moline, Illinois, after he fell ill on board. The official explanation was the flu, but reports soon emerged that he had received a save shot for an opioid overdose. This incident, while vehemently denied by his team, sent a chill through his fan base, a premonition of something far more serious. Despite the alarming scare, he appeared at a concert just days later, attempting to reassure his worried fans, telling them to wait a few days before you waste any prayers. He then performed a brief, intimate set, his voice still powerful, his presence still captivating. Yet there was a fragility in his eyes that had not been there before. He was a man pushing through immense pain, fueled by an almost pathological need to perform, to connect, to create. The final moments of his life unfolded with a haunting quietness, a stark contrast to the flamboyant spectacle of his public existence. In the early morning hours of April 21, 2016, Prince was found unresponsive in an elevator at Paisley Park. Andrew Kornfeld, the son of an addiction specialist who was en route to Paisley Park to assist Prince, was the one who called 911, guided by a frantic plea for help. Paramedics arrived swiftly, but it was too late. Efforts to revive him were unsuccessful. He was pronounced dead at 10:07 a.m. The official cause of death was later confirmed as an accidental overdose of fentanyl, a powerful opioid. He was alone when he passed, a solitary figure in the sprawling complex that had been his sanctuary, his studio, his fortress against the outside world. The man who had touched millions with his music, who had commanded stadiums with a single glance, departed the world in a quiet, almost anonymous silence, leaving behind a profound sense of shock and an unfillable void. His passing was not merely the end of a life, it was the final, tragic note in a symphony of extraordinary talent and profound, unspoken suffering. The news rippled across the globe like a sonic boom, each vibration carrying the weight of disbelief, then shock, and finally, a profound communal grief. On April 21, 2016, the world learned that Prince Rogers Nelson, the incandescent genius who had redefined music and culture for decades, was gone. The immediate reactions were a torrent of tributes, heartbroken condolences, and a desperate search for answers. Social media platforms exploded with purple emojis and heartfelt eulogies. Iconic landmarks from the Empire State Building to Niagara Falls were illuminated in his signature color, a poignant, silent testament to the magnitude of the loss. The media coverage was unprecedented, a cacophony of breaking news reports, retrospective documentaries, and endless replays of his greatest hits. Every news outlet grappled with the enormity of his sudden death, struggling to encapsulate the boundless artistry and enigmatic persona of the man who had vanished so abruptly. His funeral service, held privately at Paisley Park, was a hushed affair, reflecting his intensely private nature. Only his closest family and friends were in attendance, a small gathering of those who had known the man behind the myth. The atmosphere was one of profound, intimate sorrow, a shared understanding of the personal loss that transcended his public image. Among the notable attendees were his sister Tyka Nelson, his former wife Mate Garcia, and longtime collaborators and bandmates. Tributes were delivered not from a grand pulpit, but through quiet reflections, shared memories, and the solemn understanding of a life cut tragically short. The ashes of Prince were later placed in a custom-made urn, a miniature replica of Paisley Park itself, a poignant symbol of his enduring connection to his creative sanctuary. Public mourning, however, took on a much grander, more widespread form. Spontaneous street parties erupted in cities across the world, from Minneapolis to London, as fans gathered to dance, sing, and celebrate his life through his music. Radio stations played his songs on continuous rotation, creating a collective soundtrack of grief and remembrance. Record stores saw an unprecedented surge in demand for his albums as new generations discovered his genius and longtime fans revisited his vast catalog. The grief of his family, particularly his sister Taika, was palpable, raw, and deeply human. She spoke openly about her brother, not as a superstar, but as a beloved sibling, grappling with the shock and sorrow. Friends, collaborators, and even former romantic partners shared poignant anecdotes, revealing glimpses of the kind, shy, yet fiercely determined man they knew. The wider public, too, mourned with an intensity usually reserved for national tragedies, a testament to the profound emotional connection Prince had forged with millions through his art. His passing felt like the loss of a close friend, a guiding light, a vibrant force that had shaped their lives in countless ways. It was a global outpouring of collective sorrow, a purple haze of grief that settled over the world, signaling the end of an era and the silencing of a singular, irreplaceable voice. The death of Prince Rogers Nelson did not mark an end, but rather a profound transformation, ushering in the era of his enduring legacy, a mythic presence that continues to resonate with unparalleled force. His story fundamentally reshaped the music industry, proving that an artist could maintain uncompromising creative control, defy genre classifications, and still achieve global superstardom. He shattered the corporate mold, asserting an artistic autonomy that few, if any, had wielded before him. His influence permeated not just pop and R&B, but rock, funk, and even gospel, creating a new blueprint for what a musical artist could be. He influenced an entire generation of musicians, from Beyoncé to Janelle Monáe, each echoing his fearless experimentation, his theatricality, and his unwavering commitment to artistic truth. He showed artists that it was not only acceptable, but essential, to be utterly, authentically themselves, no matter how unconventional. Lingering mysteries continue to shroud Prince's life, adding to his almost mythical status. The circumstances surrounding his death, particularly the opioid dependency, sparked widespread debate and speculation about the pressures artists face and the silent battles they wage. His fiercely guarded private life ensures that many questions about his personal relationships, his spiritual journey, and his final struggles will likely remain unanswered, feeding the public's endless fascination. Prevailing myths, such as his alleged vault of unreleased music, continue to fuel anticipation, hinting at a creative wellspring that even death could not diminish. These theories, while sometimes embellished, speak to the sheer volume and quality of his output, a testament to his relentless work ethic. Common misconceptions about Prince often centered on his perceived aloofness or his eccentricities. While he was undoubtedly private and unique, those who knew him consistently spoke of his profound kindness, his generosity, and his deeply spiritual nature. The narrative of the wild, flamboyant rock star often overshadowed the disciplined, meticulous artist and the intensely spiritual man searching for meaning. His legacy also corrects the historical inaccuracy that he was merely a pop star. He was a virtuoso musician, a prolific songwriter, and a revolutionary producer who broke down racial and musical barriers. His story continues to resonate precisely because it is a narrative of relentless self-definition, of daring to be different in a world that often demands conformity. It's a story of raw talent meeting unyielding ambition, of vulnerability cloaked in dazzling armor. The profound lessons drawn from his experiences are manifold: the importance of artistic integrity, the courage to challenge societal norms, the enduring power of music to transcend boundaries, and the quiet struggle of a genius navigating the isolating corridors of fame. He taught us that true artistry knows no limits, no gender, no genre. His life was a vibrant, often painful symphony of self-expression, a testament to the power of individuality. He showed us that authenticity, even in its most unconventional forms, can move mountains and inspire generations. His silence may be deafening, but his music, his message, and his legacy continue to roar, a vibrant, eternal echo in the cultural consciousness. And so, the Purple Rain endures, not as a fleeting memory, but as an ever-present force, a vibrant thread woven into the fabric of our collective consciousness. Prince Rogers Nelson, the boy from Minneapolis who dared to dream in Technicolor, who painted the world with his audacious spirit and his boundless music, left an indelible mark that transcends time and trend. His journey, marked by both dazzling triumphs and profound sorrows, reminds us that genius often walks hand in hand with vulnerability, that the most brilliant lights often cast the deepest shadows. He was a paradox wrapped in mystique, a sensual prophet, a quiet revolutionary. He taught us to embrace our true selves, to dance in the face of adversity, and to find liberation in the rhythm of our own souls. Though his earthly performance has concluded, the echo of his guitar still wails in the wind, his falsetto still soars through the digital ether, and his spirit, bold and unyielding, continues to inspire us to go crazy. He didn't just make music, he created a universe, a vibrant, swirling galaxy of sound and emotion that will forever pulse with the energy of a true original. The stage may be empty, the lights dimmed, but the indelible image of a solitary figure, bathed in purple, forever plays on in the theater of our hearts, a timeless melody of courage, creation, and enduring love.